is who I choose to be. Sometimes less than.
Welcome to the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. This is Penny Fisher, and we are so glad you are joining us for this week's episode. Hello, beautiful souls, beautiful soul family. Here you are. It's so good to be with you today. As always a gift to be in your space and share thoughts and practices with you. And if things bubble up for you and you want to share them out, you're welcome to get a hold of me. You can always find contact information at the website vibrationalalchemy.net. Yeah, it's really turning into quite a beautiful community. So you can find all kinds of information there. We have some cool new offerings coming up. We're actually going to be back in New Jersey in June for two events. So we hope you can join us for those. We're getting ready to offer a new 6-week course called Awaken Your Inner Magic. So it'll be very similar to, or not similar to, but based on the free workshops we offer through Eventbrite every month. But this course is going to take a deep dive. So we're getting that pulled together. So be looking for information there. And then, of course, if you ever want to know about working at a deeper level, a one-on-one in a soul coaching program, you are welcome to schedule a free sacred success conversation with me. And whether we end up working together or not, it's my honor to hold space for you and to be able to hear what's going on for you, to witness that for you, and to just honor the beautiful journey that you're on. So yeah, you can book that right on the website if you're interested. Okay. More importantly, quick check-in to see how you're doing after last week's episode with all of the dealing with chaos. I don't know about you, but sometimes I think the universe takes great delight in offering me chances to practice being centered, being in my body, breathing, and releasing attachment. Because boy, oh boy, since we recorded that, it's been crazy. I don't know if anybody else has been experiencing it. People I know who talk a lot about astrology are saying that this has to do with the energies of last week's 5-5 portal and the energy of this new moon that we just experienced a week ago. So whatever, it seems to be settling down a little bit. I hope it is for you too. And yeah, so let's get going. I had a whole different topic picked out for this week. And then I had this profound experience around vulnerability. And it was just too present for me to put it on a back burner and make it for a later episode. I wanted to really share this with you while it was up for me. So I've mentioned that I'm part of an amazing group who we walk together every morning for half an hour. We're all on our phones on Zoom from all over the country. It's quite lovely. And in one of the conversations this week, um, we've been talking a lot about this idea about success. And it's really been affirming for me because it's mirrored the earlier podcast that we dropped about redefining failure, right? But as part of that, we're going deep into our belief systems, our senses of self-worth. And so one of my beautiful soul sisters shared some things that were really deep and really profound. And she's so cute. She says, I thought I worked all this out. I thought I was done with that. And in my head, I'm thinking, Oh man, if I had a nickel for every single time that has happened to me, right? Anybody else out there? Right? I've done the work around my issues with my mother, and yet here they come again, right? We said there's going to be a book at some point. It's going to be called Peeling the Onion. You're never done. Anyhow, she shares this this place of profound raw woundedness in her. And this was not about childhood. This what she was sharing were things that had happened to her as an adult. And it was it was just heart-wrenchingly beautiful. And the courage and the willingness to show up in that space as her, I want to call it her unmasked self, her full complement of light and shadow, and honor where she really was, right? Not try to make it okay, not say I've done all that work, but really honor the pain and the air quoting the stuff that she's been through and that is still apparently looping back. And it surprised her, right? She has done the work and she thought she was done with that. She shares all of this, and as she's processing it, and the group was amazing. Nobody tried to fix it for her. Nobody tried to make her feel better. We just kind of held space and honored where she was. And you could see it kind of fall off of her. And she said that she slept really deeply, really beautifully that night. And when she hopped on the call the next morning, I am telling you, physically, she looked different. She looked lighter, she looked freer, and she said that she was amazed at how much different she felt. Now, here was what was really, besides the gift and the honor of being able to hold space for this beautiful being, about 2 days later, I had my own crazy um, experience with vulnerability. And it's interesting, I wasn't triggered from externally. Uh, I just woke up feeling grumpy and um, and just really out of sorts emotionally and off balance. And I didn't know what it was. And I navigated it for about a day. And then I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And full disclosure, that is just a really nice way of saying that I had an epic meltdown. We are talking ugly crying. We are talking liquid running out of every possible port in my face. Oh, it was bad. Well, not bad. It just was what it was, right? And I had my meltdown with my guides. I had was sitting in my healing room and, doing my morning meditations, and I was like, "You know what? I can't pretend everything's okay anymore." And I allowed myself to go into that space, and it got really real. And it wasn't pretty for sure, but because I allowed myself to go into that space, I was able to receive over the next few days the help that I needed. And the shifts that I experienced were like amazing. Now remember, I'm talking to guides here. I'm talking to disincarnate beings. So there was nobody sitting across from me to tell me I was going to be okay. Um, this is what I should do. I just said, like, I need help because this wound is still deep and raw and it's having an impact. So I went back to some of the resources I have around vulnerability. And I don't know if any of you know Brené Brown's work. If you don't, I highly recommend checking it out. She's written a number of books. But the one that I happen to pull off the shelf is a book called Rising Strong. And she, in this book, defines vulnerability this way. She says, I define vulnerability as exposure, uncertainty, and emotional risk. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage. And that really blew me away because that's exactly what I witnessed for my friend. It's what I experienced even when I was by myself. And I'm telling you that doing it in a space where there was no one around was no less scary for me because it is when you are a recovering type quadruple A, perfectionist, control freak personality like me, right? Allowing ourselves to be seen as wounded or less than is really hard. And I have learned to be really okay with being seen that way in the outside world. But apparently, I'm still working on doing it internally. So it was hard for me to admit to myself, to become into relationship with myself in a way that allowed me to say, oh my gosh, I am a really hot mess. And I think it's because we have developed this identity that if we're not perfect, we're not going to be loved, right? We had a free workshop last night through Eventbrite called Awaken Your Inner Magic. And the group had a really powerful conversation around this, right? We've been taught that we're inherently unworthy. We're never enough. We always have to do more. We have to put everybody else before us. All of these subliminal messages that we've received throughout our lifetimes lead us to believe that we have to put on this mask, that we have to engage in this pretense that we're okay. It's like we're trying to convince ourselves that we're enough, right? Because one of our greatest terrors is that we're not going to be loved. I think I've talked about this before. There's a theorist, uh, uh, a social theory guru. His name is Maslow, and he has this theory called the hierarchy of needs. And he basically says we use this. He's a big go-to for us in education because he tells us that until basic needs are met, like food and shelter, that people are not available for learning, right? The more I get into this work, the more I think he got it wrong. All due respect. I think the most basic need that we have is to be loved. And we're afraid that when we walk in the world in our place of the most profound vulnerability, when people are going to see who we really are, we're terrified that we won't be loved. So this idea of allowing ourselves to be seen, to me, is key in coming into an energetic flow in my life that allows me to move with balance and ease. Because if I'm always walking on the tightrope of, I have to be a certain way, I have to be happy, I have to be successful, I have to let other people see my heavy emotions and then show them that I'm okay with it, right? Then when the least little wind blows and jiggles that tightrope, I'm at real risk for falling off. And that's when I feel, yeah, off balance. And for me, at least, one of the big challenges is not hiding, right? It's this idea of being seen. It's this willingness to be the fullness of who I am in any minute, right? I tell you all at the end of every podcast, I tell you all If you're checking out the TikTok or the Facebook videos every morning where I offer some gratitude and an inspirational quote, and at the end, what do I say to you? And I will say it today. You are loved and you are love. If I'm being really honest, there are days that I go out into the world and I see people and I don't feel that way about them. And that's okay. It's okay for people to see me being angry or being frustrated. And it's okay because those are the signposts that tell me where I'm not loving myself enough. Right? We talked about this in the workshop last night. When somebody cuts me off in traffic and I react with anger or frustration, I'm not angry or frustrated with that person. I'm angry or frustrated with myself for something. I don't know what it is. Right? And when we allow ourselves to be seen in this way, we actually open ourselves up to healing. And I'm thinking about this in this moment now. And that healing can take place in two ways. The first is that simply by, and this is the Tom Kenyon quote, right? Simply by bringing your attention to something, you change your relationship with it. This is the Brené Brown work. She calls herself a shame researcher. And she says when we do something we are ashamed of, the two most important things we can do are number one, tell as many people as we can about what happened. And number two, do that as quickly as we can. There's something magical that happens when we share the things that we're ashamed of, when we move into that place of vulnerability. And I watched it with my walking friend, with my walking soul sister, as she allowed herself to share this. And then it was like it opened, it pulled a plug. And all of that emotion that she'd been holding, whoosh, was just able to leave her. The other really powerful healing, and I'm going to call it, I'm air quoting, a modality, is the power of the spoken word. And you all have heard me talk about this before, but words, thoughts, emotions hold a vibration. And this is quantum physics now, folks. I'm not dancing in the woo-woo world. When we speak these things and they are received with compassion and with love, it helps that vibration of shame, that vibration of frustration, that vibration of trying to think what else is attached usually to things I need to be vulnerable about grief, the vibration of feeling unworthy, right? When we put it into the air and it is received with love and we are held, and people or our guides will mirror back to us that we're okay, that this is just part of the human experience. Healing happens. It's why I've chosen the name vibrational alchemy for the work that I do. Alchemy is the ancient practice, and it's a metaphor really, of turning metal into gold. And that's what we do. We're turning fear into love. And that can be done through the spoken word. And if we follow the goody trail of all of these things that cause us to need to be vulnerable, the things we want to keep buried, the things we want to keep a lid on, if we follow the goody trail of those, we want to find the root causes of them, I think that we will encounter an old friend. Do you all remember back in episode 6 when we talked about the ego, the small self ego? Poor little ego that gets such a bad rap. But in my personal opinion, I think the ego needs so much love because the ego has taken on the job of trying to keep us safe, And it does it by keeping us in fear. There's no malice here. The ego's not trying to hurt us, but it basically says, don't go out there and take the risk, because if you do, you might get hurt, right? The ego believes that if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we're going to be judged. We're going to be unloved. We're going to be alone, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And so the ego keeps that belief system front and center. It keeps us quiet. It keeps us believing that the only option that we have is to put on a brave face, suck it up, put on your big girl or your big boy pants, and go get the job done. We don't wear our hearts on our sleeves, right? There's probably a gazillion other expressions. And as my friend Melissa would say, I'm calling BS on that. And here's why. Because, my beautiful darlings, when you let yourselves go into the depth of your emotions, if we're being really honest, it can suck. It is not fun. I was not having a good time sitting in that chair, crying my eyes out. But there is that sense of relief that comes afterwards. There's that, yeah, I'm doing it now. There's that feeling like we can breathe. There's this sense of openness because we've created energetic and emotional space for ourselves. The heart opens. And listen, there is so much unlimited good flowing towards you. There is so much joy and so much abundance and so much love and so much balance and so much ease flowing toward you. But if your energetic cup is filled with things that you feel you have to pretend you're not feeling, if your cup is filled with unworthiness and shame and confusion and grief and all these other things we've named, these heavy emotions, there's no room for the good to flow in, my friends. We need to empty the cup, and being vulnerable allows us to do that. It kind of unkinks the flow in the hose. And my experience is that the most important place to be vulnerable is with ourselves. Now, more full disclosure, I'll be very vulnerable with you. I find that to be one of the hardest places to be vulnerable. And here's why. Because when it's just me in the space, I can tell myself stories, right? I can run my old tapes. I can run my old movies. And that's the best I can do, at least to get started. But when I am in a space with other people who love me, that cocoon of safety, that cocoon of love allows me to push past the mask. It's a mask. This mask of, no, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm a little sad. Yeah, I felt this, but I'm fine. I'm fine. How often does that come out of your mouth? And I'm just saying, fine is a 4-letter word that starts with F. Just saying. So when I'm with my friends, when I'm with my soul siblings, when I'm with family who love me at times when I can't imagine I'm worthy of love, that's a place for me to start. And when I practice being vulnerable in that space, it becomes easier for me to sit in that chair and be really, really honest with myself. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a filter. I don't have to engage in any pretense. There are ways into that when you are in your own space. One of the most powerful that I know of is journaling. I That's really not my jam, but every now and then I've done it and it has poured out profound things onto a page. So that's something that you could check into. And the other thing for me, the other um, place where I don't feel so alone when I'm sitting alone is in connecting with my guides. So whoever you talk to, whoever you work with, it could be angels. It could be a beautiful ascended master like the Buddha or Yeshua or the Divine Mother, Saint Germain. It could be your power animals. It could be um, goddesses. It could be um, it could be when you're out for a walk and you feel like you can talk to nature. Right? It doesn't matter, but when you feel that connectivity, that's the place where now it feels safe to be there. Just like it felt safe when you were with your friends, now you can be there, and I'm air quoting again, by yourself because you're not really alone. And that's the key, isn't it? We're never really alone. We just have to remember the depth of the connection, not only to these beautiful beings who are here to support us always and in all ways, but the depth of the healing and the affirmation and the joy and the peace that comes from connecting deeply with the true essence of who we are, of who you are. It's that moment of connecting with the purity of your heart, the place where you can rest because all that's there is love. And how do we get there? How do we get to a place of being okay with our, and I'm air quoting, our hot messness, and being okay with being 100% vulnerable? And for me, it always starts with the breath, because when I oxygenate my body at a physical level, my body feels safe, right? Fight, flight, or freeze mode, what do? You hold your breath. Triggers cortisol, triggers adrenaline release. We want to feel safe. So you breathe. And then you follow that breath down into your sacred heart chamber. And you rest there. And you breathe some more. That's usually where my big release happens, right there in that moment. I get to that safe and sacred space, and it all comes spilling out, the good, the bad, and usually the ugly. And as we rest in that space, as we feel safe and cocooned, we invite in the flow of unconditional love and light from the cosmic matrix. And if you're not sure about the cosmic matrix, check out episode 1. It's this beautiful flow, this river of unbelievably pure love and light that flows right out of the cosmic heart. And it is available to you. So in that heart chamber, open up the space and allow that light to flow right into your heart chamber. Or walk through the portal and go rest in the river of love of the cosmic matrix. And either way, just let yourself be infused with unconditional love. And what that will do is it will allow your cells, it will allow your DNA to reawaken to your reality, which is love. And As you fill with love that which no longer serves you, that which is a vibration of fear, will begin to resonate, will begin to vibrate at the same level as the love that's filling you. And again, this is quantum physics, my friends. And what has been the vibration of fear will now be transformed and transmuted into the vibration of love. And just allow yourself to rest there. Let yourself be loved, and let yourself be love. And I promise you that little by little, bit by bit, and I've said this before, it is not my experience that this happens in a nanosecond. This takes time. But I promise you, you will start to feel better. You will start to notice that you are encountering your heavy emotions differently. You're willing to be vulnerable. And the more you are in that space of vulnerability, the more you will sense relief and release. And it's really not release. It is that vibration of fear shifting back into what it was, what it always has been, and what it always will be, which is complete and pure, unconditional love for yourself. And this is who you are. This is how source energy, however you experience source, this is how source energy sees you. Because this is your truth. You have always been this. You always will be. And in this very moment, this is who you are. You are divine. You are perfect. And you are filled with the brilliant light of your heart. And you know that it is my sincere wish that each and every one of you would see yourself that way. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for being part of this episode with me. This has been the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. And until we are together again, please remember, you are loved and you are love.
This is who